Hello, everybody. This is Tina Mani. Welcome to the Unthink podcast. Today we have Jonathan Saffian. Hello, Jonathan. Welcome
Hi,
today. How
thank
are you
you.
doing?
Doing well. How are you doing today?
Yes, thank you for joining me today on the eve of Thanksgiving and for making time for this. I'm really happy to have you here today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a busy time of year for your average person, and then working in retail, it's obviously an extra crazy time of the year for us. So it's exciting next month and a half.
Yes, and we're also thinking about holiday campaigns and marketing and what brands can do better, what consumers want. So, so it's a really nice time to talk about these things today.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
excited to jump into it.
Yes. So Jonathan, tell me more about your background. I know we met at the RevTech event, and you were at the Sam's Club Innovation Group, and we had a great conversation. So tell me about your background in terms of what you've been doing. What are your passions? I'd love to hear it all.
Yeah, so I feel like I have a relatively typical millennial background where we all had ambitions going into school of what we were going to be when we grow up, and then the housing market crashed and jobs disappeared. So I went to college. I actually have a bachelor's in fine arts and audio video production from the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. I had every intention of moving to LA and working in film, and then I graduated, and there was nothing there. So I took a sidestep into a market research company called Ipsos Reid, and all of a sudden I realized, like, actually thinking about how people think and how to problem solve was really something I really enjoyed. So I spent a good 5 years in market research, everything from administering research to then working in a role to build a new online research platform, which I didn't know at the time, but I was essentially a product manager before I knew what a product manager was. I then moved over to Toyota and worked in their research group, and from that got pulled into the Tiger team that started their mobility company. And so we were a small team that had to figure out how should mobility live within Toyota, both from a how should we sell it, where should we invest, how should the team be structured, should it live in Toyota Motors North America, which is not a customer facing company. They sell the cars to customers because there's monopoly rules that prevent selling direct, or Toyota Financial, which is a bank, which actually has customer transaction interactions, but they don't actually sell any physical product. Um, so we got that stood up, and then really I jumped over to retail for a pure combination of fascination and I'll call it laziness. I used to have about an hour commute to work every day, and 5 minutes into that commute, I drove past this building that said Sam's Club Innovation Lab. And finally, one day, I just said, I have to figure out what this is. I can't keep driving by this and then driving another 50 minutes every morning. So I got connected with that team and jumped over to lead innovation for Sam's Club. And for the past 5 years or so, we've done a few different iterations of how innovation can work in a large company. We've had some really successful launches. We've had some really atrocious failures. I've learned probably more in the past 2 or 3 years than my collective experience up to that point ever. And then now I'm in a position where they're shifting operations to Bentonville, and I am staying in Dallas. So now I'm trying to find my next adventure, which is why I was at RevTech, trying to start understanding the world of startups and how VCs work. And so that's been my newest adventure. And I found, while I have a ton to learn from people like you who are actually out there doing it on your own, there's actually value I can bring to the table, since I've been at two Fortune 1 companies and worked with probably 100 startups from that perspective, and see what startups do wrong and what startups do right. So that's kind of been my newest niche, is trying to figure out where I can add value, and what my client should be and what my next step should be. So it's been an exciting career so far, and with AI and tariffs and everything else coming down the pipeline, I'm not anticipating being able to kick back and relax for the rest of my career. It's probably going to be crazy all the way to the finish line.
Yes, that's awesome, and I love your transition from media and wanting to go in that line versus getting into retail, especially in this day and age when the last few years we saw so many trends like the metaverse, virtual reality, AI, all that stuff coming, and that's sort of it's a great opportunity I feel for creative people like you to also think analytically. So it's a great blend of both creativity and analytic abilities when you sort of getting to the world of using branding media for consumer experience and for growing a brand. So that's really really amazing.
Yeah, I'd say like I've made some strategic moves, but I've also had some dumb luck. I like to think of like you should look at your career almost like a product, and how do you make that product most appealing to your customer? So like for me, it was starting in research and then moving into strategy. That gave me a good background of like how to figure out what to build, and then moving over into product allowed me to learn how to build and how to launch and scale something. And then my next role, whatever it needs to be, I'll either lean into those skills or find a new complementary skill that I can also add to my quiver. So it's kind of how I've treated it, and it's led to a really fun adventure.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about some of the innovations that you guys tested at Sam's Club Innovation Labs. Some of the great, so some things that were really exciting and they seemed like they should and would work, but they did not, or something that was sort of mundane and boring, but actually worked from a business point of view.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I would say we've had an interesting mix of products. My team, we have been very lucky to not be constrained to a specific swim lane. Really the only area we haven't touched is supply chain. Um, and we also, I started right before COVID. So learning about retail and learning how to be a product manager right before and then during COVID was just an exciting but also terrifying time. Um, but it allowed us to do really cool stuff. So before COVID, we were really focused on kind of the shopper of the future, like in-club navigation, simplifying like the scanning and checkout experience, like kind of incremental innovation to make, I would almost say make true omni shopping where kind of
Mhm.
online and in-person blend. When COVID hit, we pivoted to um, what the new reality of the world is. And for us, we had a theory which totally whiffed on it in full transparency, where we look at there's this thing called the timeless needs, and it's a way to look at problems to say these are needs and problems that are going to exist forever. But how you solve them is going to change, and what the
Mhm.
definition of that problem might be might change. And so we thought safety. It's always been important in retail, right? Like you don't want to go to the gas station in the rough part of town at 11:30 at night where there's bars on the windows because you don't feel safe. That's physical safety. We thought during COVID, we need to look at safety from a standpoint of cleanliness for so you don't catch COVID. And so I would say like one of our best failures was we were looking at can we monitor the air quality in a store and predict or retroactively know when the COVID virus had been introduced into that store.
Wow.
And then in tandem with that, can we test technologies that will clean the air so that COVID isn't a concern? Because if we could nail those two things, we could, one, for safety from the COVID, we could assure our customers that it's safe. And we used a type of technology that essentially ionized the air and it created hydrogen peroxide in ozone, which is essentially what an ozone machine does, but without the
Mhm.
negative side effects of like if you're near an ozone machine, it can really hurt you. Um, and it also then when it lands on surfaces, because this was the beginning days of COVID when we thought surface transmission was a thing, it also cleans those surfaces. So we could nail it from a safety standpoint, but then we worked with a university, I'm blanking on the name of it, it's out of Buffalo, New York, that were making these very small IoT air quality sensors that could detect viral load, bacterial load, a bunch of other metrics on air, and also did a point in time, I want to say it was like every 30 second, it took a sample of the air, which could be analyzed by a lab so we could know if and when COVID was present. Um, and that would allow us to reassure our customers things were safe because we could do a live heat map where we could show the store and you could see in real time like there's a low viral load, there's a low bacterial load. It would be interesting because you could actually see it spike when something was introduced to the environment. Like if if you're like you're unpacking a pallet of vegetables. Like it's not like it's covered in viruses or bacteria, but it does add a lot to the air just from that
Wow.
natural thing coming in. So you would see like a little plume of it.
It's interesting.
Um, and like it was very cool technology, but what we found is like no one cares. So it was like a
Mhm.
really fun failure because we learned a lot. Like our technology learnings were great. Our problem that we were addressing, it's still a good problem, but the way we were addressing it was just a complete whiff. So I'd say
Maybe it was
that's
just an overkill for a retail store, but the same technology could be more useful in a different place, like a hospital or something.
it's the company we worked with is doing great with hospitals, and it's really
Mhm.
cool because they're introducing it so you can actually see like in a hospital floor, like when things are there's issues with cleanliness, and it allows for a much safer environment.
Mhm.
Like I know a few years ago, it's probably more than a few now, they introduced in hospitals a checklist for during surgery, and just having the staff go through that checklist allowed the area to be cleaner, and they saw like a marked increase in safety issues where like people were getting infections or things after like a procedure.
Wow. Mhm.
And so this like kind of layers on top of that. So yeah, it was a really cool thing. And it's exciting to see where that company is going. I haven't checked in on them in like a year. I need to look back at them. Um, and then
Yeah.
like thinking about something kind of boring that was very successful. We what we realized during COVID that curbside pickup was a real game changer because it allowed you to shop safely. The
Yeah.
problem was if you look at like our customer segments, that works great for the people that are using our like our scan and go app or buying online or using our mobile app from home because they already understand that environment. Those people are also usually the most or the least likely to have to worry about the virus because usually that skews younger
Yeah.
and it skews higher education. Um, but the older people who are a little bit more tech averse, whether it's I know there's some that are by choice and some that just don't get it.
Yeah.
Um, they weren't using it because they didn't understand it.
Hmm.
So what we actually did was we kind of inception to checkout option, which is we made not myself, but our company made Scan and Go, which is the ability to shop in club with your phone. So you actually never have to interact with a human or go to checkout.
Hmm.
We then took that customer facing app and turned it into a associate facing app because it was the only thing we had that was built for mobile and allowed for checkout. And we what we wanted to do is essentially do live curbside in a parking lot. And the only device we had in clubs that had cellular data was these iPads that were used by our tire and battery
Hmm.
area. So we forked the code, we took the Scan and Go app, we turned it into essentially we put a list in front of it. So what would happen is the customer would pull up, you'd greet them like from a safe distance, so you'd never get close to them, and you
Hmm.
would work with them to visually build their list, and then they would go in and shop for these customers and come back out and load their car, and then they would just type in the credit card information and finalize the transaction on the iPad. So the technology of building a point of sale system, it's like it's novel, right? It's everywhere. Like most stores you go to now, like Nordstrom, you can check out with any associate. But like the use case of how do we address this need and make a more safe place for especially seniors, um, it was a new use case to enable or be enabled by a tool like this, and it was also um, the first mobile point of sale we had at Sam's Club. And we actually went from initial idea to live at 598 clubs in
Wow.
10 days. So it was I think it's a great example of, big companies are slow to innovate, but if they want to and they're motivated to, they can move very quickly.
Yeah.
So that was
I
a
love the
really fun one.
pivot from customer facing to associate facing. That's amazing.
It was really, and like that, it was a cool take on registered tech. We actually, after the fact, because we didn't do anything that was like necessarily wrong, but definitely some of the ways we built it are not best practices. So we spent about the next year going back and rebuilding it correctly.
Hmm.
Um, and it's lived on. I'm not sure if they're still using the original code, but it's lived on to be like the mobile point of sale system that um, is being developed for SAMs. So it's a cool example of using a novel approach to solve a real problem quickly. And then it also, I think it's a good example of like that, it was profitable. But in the same breath, like it had a very finite lifespan because as soon as the people got comfortable with COVID, they didn't need it anymore.
Hmm.
But then it still allowed that the learnings from that and the technology from that to live on. And now it's turned into, like, for example, we used that same technology for a pilot we called Sip and Shop, which
Hmm.
was we made essentially a wine booth in a Sam's Club where you could have a glass of wine while you shop. And
Hmm.
we needed a point of sale system for that. So we forked the code again and made a point of sale service for wine. And that was an instance where we actually integrated, and it's the first time in the company a non-SAMS employee could could run a checkout. Because we had that staffed by a third party company that does, like, if you've ever been in a Sam's Club and you do the sampling,
Hmm.
those people aren't actually Sam's associates, they're contractors. So they were the ones that had to run that. So it's a cool example of like how something can morph to address different needs, but you can build on what works well, and you can also learn from what either didn't work well or just its life ended because there was no problem anymore
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
initial use case. So
yeah.
that was a cool one.
I love the
Um,
fact that you can pivot stuff. Like, for example, one of the this reminds me of one of our applications where we pitched to a home decor retailer that the customers could use a complete the look feature where I upload a picture of my sofa and I get what's matching it, and then I can check it out. So they were like, "How about we offer this as an in-store associate app, because now the associate can help people who come to the store, and because most of the home decor products were being bought on in the store, not online." And they were like, they were more keen to fix that problem than the online customers problem. So exactly like you said, it was supposed to be a consumer facing app, but they found that the use would be more for the store associate.
no,
So that's
absolutely.
really
Yeah.
interesting. I also
It's
love the fact that that you said that you unlocked the ability for a non-employee to actually do something with the POS, with the checkout, right? Assist the store. I think that's also mind blowing because, like, imagine that in the future you could have an influencer picking stuff for stores and do a part time thing, right? They don't have to be employees. You could just have a marketing campaign where let's say you have influencers and they come and they actually help your customers pick stuff because customers have a hard time making choice. Yeah, if I'm just thinking wildly, but when you said that you're gonna enable the non-store associates to use it, it's just too interesting there.
yeah,
It
and
looks like it opens up a lot of new things there.
that's what I think. There's big swings with innovation, and like we
Yeah.
definitely have taken and are taking some very big swings at Sam's
Mm.
Club. But there's also like smaller things, and you can do a small thing that is a key enabler to a bunch of other small things, which
Hmm.
collectively become a big thing. I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he led the English cycling team,
Hmm.
and they were terrible, and now they're world class. And his approach was, it's not one thing that's going to solve this. It's all about
Hmm.
incremental improvement. If we
Mm.
do 50 things 1% better, it can lead to a large improvement. And I think a lot of times, like when you think about innovation, you only think about those big swings,
Yeah.
but it's nice to also think about like what are the key enablers or like the
Hmm.
foundational pieces that you might be able to build as you take a big swing that could enable 50 little tiny baby steps, either for your team or for other teams.
Yeah. That's a great insight too. It doesn't have to be like a radical new thing, right? It's you fix one thing, and sometimes you fix one thing and then you accidentally stumble along something really really big. You unlock something big, like you were talking about.
Yeah,
That's
no,
interesting too.
I like there's it's not an innovation thing, but people always talk about. I think it was American Airlines that a flight attendant realized if you took one less olive out of every martini, it would save the company like tens of millions of dollars. It's like that was a huge impact, but like it
Hmm.
was literally just remove an olive, and like you can look at like true innovation the same way. Like there's sometimes just a little thing, and like it's really cool like to see um, after working in this world for a little bit, you like start to notice everywhere else that stuff like this is happening. So it's fun to see like other people or other companies like have that little aha moment on their own.
Hmm. Okay. Yes. So now let's talk about the big swings. So AI, uh, AI is going to eat the world, right? I think so. It's the pace at it has been changing over the last 2 years is just amazing. Of course, right now I heard that the algorithm updates are slow down a little bit because the barrier has been now data, and the big companies have realized that they don't have any more data to process to make the AI better. So unless they create, fake data, or the AI itself generates data to then improve itself. That's sort of the next thing. But in
The
terms
echo
of,
chamber, yeah.
yeah, exactly, the echo chamber, which is not so good, I think, because it's just gonna multiply what's already there. And what do you think about this? Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, transparently, I'm not an AI expert. We've definitely
Yeah.
done some experimentation there. And it's something that I'm constantly learning about, but I feel like it's evolving so quickly that unless you're just a super enthusiast or really working in it every day, like you're always going to be behind. Um, but personally, I used to tell people with younger children that they should have them start learning code. And like there's a Lego set where you can actually, it's like intro to programming for kids essentially. I would
Yeah.
always say you should buy that. Now I'm not sure. Since AI, I'm using, I think it's called Cursor AI to experiment with building an app because I don't
Yeah.
know how to code as a product person, and like it
Mhm.
writes the code for me, and I'm sure that code isn't amazing, but it's still like it's fascinating, and especially since most of us that can think critically, if you can say like write this code for me and then look at the code, you'll start to learn how to read the code naturally. It's kind of like language immersion.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure like what the future holds for things like that. But in general, like it's definitely going to change the world. Um, I think it's the best argument for universal basic income we've ever had since, man, when we start seeing like even when I was at Toyota, we looked at
Yes.
the impact on the economy, and one of the first things that's going to be affected by self-driving vehicles is hub to hub big rigs. And it's, I believe, the number one job in America. There's more people doing that than any other thing. And it pays usually six figures. And like really quickly, that entire industry is going to be wiped out. And we're not talking, it used to be that when the horse and carriage was replaced by the car, well, all those people that built horses or not built horses, built carriages learned how to build cars. You're still
Yeah.
using tools, you're still building a thing. I don't know what a million truck drivers are going to be able to pivot and do because that new technology, sure, it'll open up some jobs. It's not going to be a one-to-one or in a better world, a growth opportunity. And I think we're going to see that across a lot of industries. Um, and we were talking with some people that work very deeply in this field recently, and I made the joke that it's kind of like Oppenheimer because that movie had just come out, and
Mm.
it's our generation splitting the atom, and like I really truly feel like that's the best analogy because we have to do it because if we don't do it, someone else is, and
Yeah.
the first person to that finish line is going to be in a very strategic advantage from either a corporate standpoint or even from a national standpoint. But at the same time, like the negative ramifications could be huge. But it's been personally, I really enjoyed playing with it. We did one true experiment with AI where we were looking at customization. I'm trying to keep this at a high enough level that I won't get slapped on the wrist. But we were looking at customization of information for members um, based on their uh, customer segmentation. So like
Mhm.
for us, like Happy Host is one that we use, which is essentially if you think of like everyone has that one friend that loves to host parties.
Mhm.
It's like that's our Happy Host demographic. Um, so how can we utilize AI to make a more personalized shopping experience for those people or
Mhm.
everybody? And it was a 2 week um, test that then led to a white paper. And by the time we got through that and call it from initial idea to completion, probably 2 months, by the time we got through that, ChatGPT had advanced so much that every team was playing with AI. And so it's been interesting because usually like a emerging technology team is going to run, like right now we do a lot with AR VR. Like that's something we could run with for a couple of years before it's going to be mainstream enough that every team should start playing with it. But AI has gone so horizontal so quickly, which is that everyone can use it. So it's the most innovative thing out there, but it's not like gate kept by like any one like knowledge set. I mean, like my parents use it now
Yeah.
in place of Googling sometimes. So
Mhm.
I'm incredibly excited and also absolutely terrified with what the future of AI looks like for I think all of us that are in the phase of our career where it's like, am I going to retire or are there just not going to be any jobs? And if I'm a Gen Alpha, I mean, work on your TikTok dances maybe because I don't know what's going to happen to the job market by the time they get out of college.
Yeah, I think a person like you should not be scared at all because I'm an optimist and I feel like, yes, there is going to be a big shift in mindset and the way that we have to think, but it is actually democratization of opportunity, right? And I feel like those who leverage it will move ahead and not be eaten by it. and they will be the ones who create jobs for many people. I don't think there'll be like a hierarchical corporate structure. I think it'll break down into many, like millions of tiny small businesses that are independent because they can run their own AI, they can run their own agents, do their own thing. And I feel like these are the jobs that will be there in the future where everybody has sort of control on their own way of or their own lens on the world. There, of course, there are the risks that there will be some bad players who will come and try to monopolize and uh, maybe try to use the data for power, and so it's going to be really interesting going forward. But I feel like this is a great opportunity also for many people with talents to sort of break through the barriers and do something and get that lead over the only the big corporates that have a lot of money, because now it takes much less effort and less uh, to do something new compared to earlier. I mean, compared to with no AI.
Yeah, then I think that's a very good and optimistic way to look at it. It's been interesting. You look at when I went to school and we were doing like film projects, you needed a camera that was well north of $1,500. You needed an Avid editing suite, which I
Yeah,
don't even know how much those things cost. And then after you were ready, like YouTube was just really becoming a thing. So like getting something actually to people was challenging.
yeah,
And then you look at today and it's like you can shoot a full length film on an iPhone. Similarly, like you can record your band using a basic laptop and like
yeah,
have something live on Spotify in a day. So it's allowed a lot of people to let their talents and their passions get to the world easier and monetize it potentially faster. And
yes,
AI is kind of the next step in that. Like I can't draw to save my life, but when I need like graphic design work done, I
yes,
can talk to ChatGPT or some of the other like art tools and it'll make something for me. And it doesn't do it perfectly, but it gets it close enough that then I can like nudge it.
yeah,
And so I think we're going to see a lot of that where people that have a passion about a thing, but don't have the skill that comes from doing it for, decades or years, are now going to be able to actually like do more with that passion. So I think it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be awful. And hopefully we come out the other side of it in a good spot. But for now, I encourage everyone to say please and thank you when you're dealing with ChatGPT and Siri because you just never know. And I think if the robots take over, I want them to remember I was nice to them, and maybe they'll give me one of the nice jobs. Not, I don't want to be in like a recycling plant or something.
that is so funny. Or Jonathan's going to create his own jobs. He doesn't need a robot to assign jobs to him.
That's fingers crossed.
Yes. So, yeah, one of my favorite topics, as you know, is consumer experience. And I just want to talk about how Unthink enables brands to basically get their products in front of trends. So, imagine that there's a program going on, or there's an event, let's say there's an esport game, or there's a Taylor Swift concert. What if the fans could just capture videos and moments and directly connect those to the products that they endorse? And showcase them and make money instantly. So it's like a new way of marketing where you're empowering an army of creators to just go out there, spot trends, and pull up your products wherever they make sense. So
It's
yeah,
it's been very fun watching big brands like Walmart embrace that.
yeah,
Um, it's really interesting. Like when I was at Toyota, we had a quarterly research project we did where we tracked what really influenced sales of vehicles for customers. And if you looked at some of the traditional mediums like Consumer Reports and JD Power, like these large syndicated, very like scientific analysis of vehicles, they were trending down relatively quickly. And
mhm,
what was trending up was online reviews, customer created videos, things like that.
yeah,
Um, and like that was being done without any direct brand integration. And now you're seeing a lot of that integration. Like we talk frequently at Sam's about the Sam's influencers. Like we see all their videos, and our marketing team interacts with a lot of them directly. We've flown a few in once for like a town hall meeting to do like a TED talk with them. And you're seeing a lot of power move to these people that just decide, I'm going to be the super user and brand advocate for this thing, and hopefully I do a good enough job that I can make money off of it.
yeah,
And so you're seeing big companies embrace it, but honestly, like I think a lot of big companies struggle to figure out how to interact with that because it's not dealing with one ad agency; it's dealing with 1,000
Yes.
humans. So then we're seeing companies like what you're building that can fit in that middle ground of, it's almost like the talent agency of the future, where
Yeah.
before you used to have to fly out to LA and get signed with some agency, and today it's just there's going to be a platform that they can be
Yes.
that intermediary to connect you to a brand. And like that to me is a great example of like watching like one tech that's going to raise the tide for everyone. So I'm very excited to see how that evolves over the next couple of years. That being said, on TikTok, I feel like it's turned into QVC for influencers. Like
Hmm.
all it is people like talking the same projects. Like I've seen that Ninja blender, or not blender, the Ninja slushy machine, which by the way, I want really badly, just not for $300. I've seen people trying to sell that to me for the past month and a half in like
Yeah.
every form possible. And so I'm hoping we can get through that phase, because like there's only so much having a product thrown at us we can take. Um,
Yes.
but I think we will come to a spot where the market will regulate itself automatically in a way that there's great people making good content that supports different brands and aligns with humans. Um, but some of the noise will realize it's not valuable for them to be in it, and move
Yeah.
away. And I think
Yeah.
there's a few technologies and companies I'm looking at that I think are going to be real key unlocks for that over the next few years.
Yeah, I even think that there's a real-time feedback that's needed because, like you said, it's like over emphasizing on a few products and then you get bombarded. It's like overreacting to trends and staying there too long, right? So you have one product that's trending and then everybody is jumping at that. There should be a feedback loop where there's the AI, the intelligence about the customer demand and what customers really want that gets back right immediately to the brands, maybe the small brands, maybe the more agile brands that can respond directly to it. So imagine that, you're not just spotting a trend and then first of all, you're late, maybe a month or two, and then you're throwing products after the product has already gone out of trend. So that whole response, the tight loop between spotting a trend, serving it, finding out when it stops or finding out where the next trend is and then reacting to it. I think that'll really cut down a lot of the wastage in the supply chain also because you're not flooding the market with lots of the same type of products. It That's what I think.
That would be a dream. I
Yeah.
know, it's a company Walmart bought years ago.
Mhm.
It was called Jet. It was like an online Amazon competitor.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
And they had a service called Jet Black,
Hmm.
which I wasn't directly connected to this. So forgive me for anyone listening that knows more than I do about the topic if I'm off. But essentially, the goal of that product was you gave them your credit card info and they learned a bunch of things about you. And then they would just send you things they know you need.
Mm.
So it kind of cuts out the entire shopping process.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see with AI, there are, I think we're already very close to
Yes,
the ads you
absolutely.
get or the TikTok algorithm you see is like stuff directly that they know you want. And so like, will we get to a spot where there really isn't advertising? Like it just shows up? Or will we just get to a spot where you've got your certain content creators that really align with you and your views, and they're really the ones kind of your window to consumerism? Like I'm not sure, but I think
Yeah.
it'll be it'll be very interesting to be a part of, hopefully, and hopefully we're a part of it
Yeah.
over the next however many years it's going to take for that to really come to fruition.
Hmm. Yes. One more thing I want to talk about is we talk about how the content that is created by publishers is being used by the big AI companies, and then the publishers are struggling because the AI companies are now showing the content directly. I've spoken to a few publishers who talk about how they had fake users, so they thought their monthly traffic was X, but then they found that those were actually bots that were consuming their content and using that to train the AI. So that's sort of a sad thing. And I feel like if there's a way for creators to come build their content and then to get rewarded because the AI model will be trained on that specific, group of creators content. So ideally they should also get a pie from it rather than just have a few benefit from it. So
It's
that's one
that's
of
gonna
my thoughts.
that's gonna be a really interesting world.
Yes.
Because of what I went to school for, I have quite a few friends working in Hollywood, and there was the strike last year. That was one of the core areas of disagreement. It was if you're an actor, what's to
Yeah.
stop these companies from creating a fake you or something close enough to you that they don't have to pay you, but far enough away, or I guess far enough away from you, they don't have to pay you, but close enough to you that your fans are going to watch it and like understand, like, oh, that's Nicole Kidman ish. And then at the same time, with like writing a script, like how long before AI is going to be able to take every television script ever, and then you just give it a prompt and it'll make a new TV script.
Hmm.
And the same is, for a lot of things in that industry. And how do we make sure that doesn't happen? And because it's not just going to affect that industry, it's going to affect a lot of industries. And like, that's going to be, I'm curious how we net out on that.
Yeah.
Because it is like, it's a great opportunity right now. This technology is enabling influencers to have this great new niche. That's good for customers, it's good for brands, and it's good for them. But are we going to be able to use that to enable people, or is it going to start replacing people? Um, and that's going to be an interesting one. I saw there was, I forget the company name, but they were looking at taking enough video and audio of like your parents that after they passed away, you could have essentially a
Mm.
virtual persona of a family member and
Yeah.
still have like real conversations, which like is both like a beautiful and heartbreaking thing when you think about it from that standpoint. But if the technology would get good enough that that would work,
Yeah.
which obviously it's close if this company is spending millions and millions of dollars looking into it, um, then it would be easy to say that you could replace pretty much any writer or actor or director, um, and get something close enough to what people already like that Michael Bay 2.0 could just be an AI bot that's making Transformers 472 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Um, so like it, it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I'm very
I think.
glad I am not dealing directly with that because I have no idea which direction it's gonna go.
Mhm. Yes, I think it's really going to be like, as an optimist, I feel like the people who leverage it, who can create their own sort of digital personas that represent them truly, and then leverage that to do all the mundane work that they do, could be really powerful. Because imagine, like, I have a Tina sidekick who does all the jobs that I don't want to do, but still represents me the way that I want it represented, not another AI bot that mined my data. So owning my own data, representing myself in the way that I want to, and then owning it to make my life simple. That would be the dream that I look forward to.
I would love that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we're all worried about privacy. If you could give me a virtual assistant that knows me well enough to be as good as like a highly paid assistant for like an executive,
Yeah.
I'll give it access to all my private information. Like at that
Yes.
point, like let's open the floodgates because if it can even
Yeah.
handle my Amazon returns, if you could just do that, I'll give you access to any piece of my data you want.
Mhm.
So it'll be cool to see if that's a thing. I would love that because you could have a
Yeah.
startup of one. If you have a great idea, you don't need to put a team together unless it's a complementary part. You could just work with an AI and say like, "Here's my idea, build it for me."
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Like tons and tons of small businesses that can represent themselves and make money,
Yeah,
basically.
you'll see mom and pop shops that are designing products using AI and then printing it in the back of their shop and putting
Hmm.
it up for sale. Like it'll
Exactly.
be fun to see.
Yes, absolutely. Great. Really nice having you, Jonathan. If there's anything else you would like to say, please go ahead. Otherwise, I think we've discussed a lot of topics and it's been really fun chatting with you.
Yeah, no, I think I guess the thing I would just leave people on is I realize I've been kind of pessimistic about what the future holds because of AI. But I'd also say like I don't think we should be afraid of it yet. I think we should all just embrace it
Yeah.
and see where it's going to take us because I think humanity has shown over time their ability to adapt and evolve, and this is just another opportunity for that. So let's not all panic yet, at least until let's get through the holidays, and then maybe we can panic. Um, but let's all try to be optimistic, even though at the moment I might be talking pessimistically. I have to play devil's advocate there, but I am very excited to see where all this can take us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think we must think on both sides because obviously there are going to be a lot of, whenever there's a great technology, something that's really powerful, there will always be bad players. That's the nature of humanity. And the what I feel is that all of us should be educated about it and know the potential so that more people can use it for good than not be ignorant about it and then let someone else leverage it. So I feel like either you get swept away by it or you adapt it and ride the wave. That's sort of what I feel.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Have a great Thanksgiving holiday, and it was awesome talking to you.
Yeah, awesome talking to you as well, and have a
All
great
right.
holiday and have a good one.
Okay, bye bye.